Welcome to the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks Show, a series designed to give you insight into the world of self-publishing and marketing your books. Featuring your hosts, Shannon, the author behind the pen name SC Huston, Ben Pick, and Morgan Lee. Join us several times each month when we interview authors about their self-publishing and marketing journeys, talk to industry leaders, and discuss books about writing, self-publishing, and marketing. Hi everyone, today we're doing a book review, and I'm joined by a couple of guests as we informally talk about Dale L. Roberts' book, Amazon Keywords for Books, How to Use Keywords for Better Discovery on Amazon. We'll discuss what we learned for our own author and publishing journeys and what we are taking away from the reading. And before we have our guests introduce themselves, I do want to give a quick update. This is coming out June 15th, and we're actually not too far from the recording of this, so we're right on time. For me personally, I am still working on the next book in my series, and I will actually be putting up a pre-launch page for this book on Kickstarter right about the time of the authortube writing conference, which is in less than 2 weeks. And the authortube writing conference is entirely free. It's all online. You can find us by going to authortubewritingconference.com. And actually, one of our guests today, Andy, has been at every and spoken at every authortube writing conference. So it's great to have someone who has that background information. But we also thought this was a good time to talk about Dale's book because we also do have a connection to him and our community on YouTube. He is a big proponent of helping out indie authors in their self-publishing journeys. And he has been very good and instrumental in helping me figure out my author journey and my journey on YouTube, and definitely count him as a friend. So I'm happy that we're able to read this book after we've been doing a couple years of reading books and reviewing them. And it also goes along with Dale is one of our special guest speakers at the conference. And that is going to be an awesome panel that he has. He's already recorded his session with the panel, but he talked to several different publishing companies about the future of publishing in the indie space. And I think that's going to be an amazing presentation. And that his presentation is on Friday, the first day of the conference, and that is June 28th. So I think that's a perfect time for us to also talk about his book and some of his knowledge that he's brought to the community from his years of working as an indie publisher and working in this space. All right, so now let's have our guests introduce themselves. We'll start with returning author Andy from the YouTube channel Self Pub with Andy, which used to be Easy Graphics. And I think we've had him on the podcast in the past when his channel was Easy Graphics. So if you had listened to that episode, it's the same person who's talking with us today. I also met him through Dale's community. So it's fitting that we are talking about Dale's book again today. So Andy, please tell us who you are, anything you'd like to share for others to find out more about you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Andy. I run the YouTube channel Self Pub with Andy, which was rebranded from Easy Graphics. So yeah, definitely needed a rebrand because people were just not quite aligning what I was talking about before. And it didn't really make sense to talk about graphics when I was mostly about self-publishing. Anyway, yeah, come find me on YouTube. I'm basically sharing information about self-publishing, my experiences, and I'm also recently on Instagram. Not as much as I would like to be, but I am trying to grow that at some point. So yeah, thank you for having me, SD, and great to be here.
And I also think it's great to have both of our guests that we have here coming from different perspectives with Amazon ads and reading about Amazon ads, because Andy writes nonfiction, which is slightly different process in how ads or how your keywords can be chosen, which is something that's talked about in the book. So I like that. And then we also have Nicole, who I've also met from the community on YouTube. And I have one of her books. She is a fiction writer like me. So we also have a unique perspective on the fiction side. And she also brings with her a wealth of knowledge because she's part of the Amazon, what's the name of the group you're part of?
Brian Cohen's Ad School.
Ad School, right. I think I did say that just a little while ago, but I already forgot it. So yeah, part of Brian Cohen's Ad School. Brian Cohen is someone who's well known in the indie spaces for helping out with Amazon ads and creating your ads on Amazon. So I'm going to let Nicole now introduce herself. Please let everyone know a little bit about you and anything you would like to share for others to find out more about you.
Yes, I am Nicole PIERMAN, but also Nicole BRONA. I have two names, but I don't hide them or anything like that because with Amazon algorithm, it would be very, very confused if I put all of my urban fantasy books under my given name. So you can find urban fantasy under Nicole BRONA and then every other genre under Nicole PIERMAN. And you can just search either or name and somehow, some way, the SEO, I did a great job. I'll pop up on Google. or DuckDuckGo. But I'm also Nicole's Bookish Nook on YouTube. And I, like I said, write urban fantasy, but then I also write poetry, historical fiction, and historical fantasy. I can't just pick one, of course. I have to do all things.
Well, that gives you lots of experience in different fields. Now let's talk about Dale L. Roberts' book, Amazon Keywords. It is a long title, so we'll just short it Amazon Keywords as we talk about it throughout today. But yeah, I want to start with, why did we choose this book? Because we put together a reading list a couple years ago that people were able to suggest books that they would love to hear about when it comes to the craft of writing and selling books online. This is a very important book, I think, for anyone to read, or finding out as much information as you can about Amazon Keywords, because it is kind of a big beast to try to figure out little by little, but don't get overwhelmed with it for sure. But we chose this book, and I don't know, I'm trying to remember who chose this book. It has my name on there as the main person who was going to be hosting the review of this book, but I feel like I'm not the one who chose this. I feel like someone reached out to me and said, hey, can you add this to the list? And that's what I was like, oh yeah, Dale, I definitely want to add it. I know Dale. So, but I don't remember who it was who reached out to me. So that's why we chose this book. It's been a couple years that's been on the list, and I thought this was great timing, like I said, because he's coming to speak at the authortube writing conference in just about 2 weeks. So it was a good time to talk about this book. I like to start with reading the book's description and note that the acronym AMS, which is in the description, does stand for Amazon Marketing Services. You wrote the book, the cover is on point. Why isn't it selling? The answer is simple. Nobody knows it exists. Amazon is a marketplace, and when someone goes there to find a new book, they do a search, and that's where the keywords become crucial. You need them for metadata, the 7 keywords, description, helping Amazon's algorithm, and running your AMS ads. You'll learn the importance and function of keywords, how to fill the 7 backend keyword slots in KDP, why keyword relevance determines your success, how to leverage search engines to do your work, and so much more. The most wonderful part is the AMS ads tool might be the best kept secret in keyword research, and Dale will show you how to get the most out of it. Are you ready for success? You'll love this comprehensive book on keywords because it's easy to follow and will teach you what you need to forever master the subject. All right. And I love that in the blurb, it says that you'll love this comprehensive book. But if you look at the book, and I'm showing you on screen, it's very, very thin. It's only like 90 plus pages, like 95 or something, 91 pages. It's not very big. And to say comprehensive, it can make you wonder, well, the book's not very big. Is it truly comprehensive? And I would say yes. So this goes to answering the question of whether or not the book fulfills the promise of the premise in the blurb. And I would say that overall it does. I think this was a very useful book. I do have to say, I think I'm glad that I do know a little bit about Amazon ads already, because some of these, especially in the beginning, I might have felt a little overwhelmed by trying to learn all of this stuff. But it's not like it was too much. I mean, I didn't have to spend the brain power to break down what those different things were that he was first talking about, because I already knew what he was talking about with some of this stuff. But I still feel like this would be a great book for any beginner, because at some point you have to learn all these initial concepts to understand Amazon ads. So those are my thoughts. What did you guys think about the book, and did it deliver on what it promised?
Yeah, I do think it's a great book, especially as an introduction. There's so much information out there, and I think this definitely adds value, so it's a great resource for sure, especially for anyone starting out. I think it delivers on the premise. Obviously, I think I've got information from elsewhere as well, and I've done my own thing, and I've tried different things out, so I may not agree with everything. And also, I think it's worth noting that when was it written? I think it was in 2000, thereabouts, so things may have changed. What I would say is the algorithm at Amazon is forever changing, I think. So although this book is a great kind of introduction, I think, and really great foundational book, I think it's important to understand that things do change, and Dale actually says it does change. So, you have to keep that in mind. It's not that, things just stay the same forever, especially with AI, the landscape has changed. So you need to bear that in mind. So when you read this book, I think it's reasonable to say some things in 2020 will have moved on. But I think as a first book or introduction or foundational resource, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I started with David Gaughran, who's an Irish self-published author, and he's also big in the self-publishing space. And then I went to 20 books to 50K, but that's a Facebook group, and it's not like just one person, though they have administrators and the founders. Yeah. But that was a lot of scrolling, a lot of reading, because they post so much there. And then I think that's how I found Brian Cohen. I did 2 courses before I signed up, and then I'm a year and a half in, and I'm a wizard, so I know many, many things. Never heard of Dale L. Roberts, but that's what happens on the internet. You can just find all these people, and then you've never heard these other popular people, because Dale's very popular. And like Andy said, it's a good foundation, though there has been stuff that has changed, and it's always changing, and Amazon doesn't particularly like to share stuff. Like, there have been changes this year that I don't know, and Ad School Brian Cohen doesn't know, but like they did something with an algorithm and they're not telling us what it is. So a lot of writers are struggling, especially with Amazon ads. They did some other stuff with that too that we can only guess. And that's kind of the beast of just advertising in general, but specifically Amazon ads. They will change things and then, okay, great, we have to work with it. And also, I forget which page, but he talks about replying to reviews. Don't do that. Don't do that. They took it off because there's a screenshot that I'm pretty sure, am I making stuff up? I'm pretty sure there's a screenshot.
There was.
Yeah, don't do that. You're gonna get in so much drama. But I had no idea that people could reply to reviews on Amazon, but I'm sure that they took that off for
I find
multiple reasons.
I find that interesting because I have seen companies reply to reviews on their products on those pages so not books, but like something else that you might buy. You know, if I'm trying to find out if I want to buy a product, I look at the reviews and someone's like, oh, this came in different packaging. And then the company will respond, say, yeah, we're updating our packaging right now. Thank you. You know, so that made me wonder. I never thought about me as an author replying to reviews because it's heard in our space quite a bit. Reviews are for readers, not for authors. So you don't touch them. You just leave them alone. But then I'm like, when I read this in this book, like what you're saying, I was like, wait, should this be something someone consider? Like, because it's not replying in a sense of, you know, you're trying to defend yourself. He's saying replying as in just basically saying thank you as a way to bump up the algorithm. But I'm like, I don't know how to feel about that, to be honest. But again, I've only really paid attention to that a couple of years ago. I don't know if that's still something that companies can do, is reply to reviews. Are you saying it's not an option anymore? Is that what you think?
No, I've never seen it, and I'm on Amazon all the time.
Yeah, I think
they pulled it.
Yeah, and they took the option off for authors to reply. I think so Seller Central for products, like actual physical products and stuff, that may still be going on. So I used to do Amazon selling stuff. That was an option, but not Amazon KDP took the option for authors to reply. So there may be like a different thing for Seller Central versus KDP.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, Seller Central. I used to sell books, and it was great for a while, and then like this one person like used, like, if I didn't like a book, okay, I'll put it up, but it's like third party. That's where you see the third party like used. That's Seller Central, and it's fine until you get people that want to play with the system. They said one of them, it was like a Buffy comic, and I regret selling my Buffy comics, but you know, side note. They said that I demand a refund because it got wet in the rain because I forgot about it for 4 days. I'm like, doesn't that seem like a you problem? But oh no, I got a strike for saying no, and then Amazon issued them a refund. I'm like, okay, I'm done. So you interact with people through Seller Central. It's not really reviews though. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I thought, I'm gonna just go with interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting idea that you could reply to books because I had never seen that before by an author. Again, I always had it in my head that, you know, reviews are for readers, not for authors. So it's just nothing that's ever crossed my mind before. So
yeah, just stick with that.
Yeah.
There's some it's like weekly, multiple times a week drama of reviews, like a recent one, which is traditionally published person saying leave 5-star reviews or don't at all. And I'm like, oh. So, okay, I would just say don't say anything at all. Don't say it. And so when I read that, I was like, oh, that's outdated. And then also Goodreads book. I don't think you can do on BookUp. I think really the only place you can reply is Goodreads. Don't do that. And then like don't do like a X or Threads rant about reviews because that's where that person got into trouble. But yeah, I think that could be a confusing part. And I couldn't find anything else that was very outdated.
The social shares.
That one part. Oh, the social shares.
Yeah, because, and I've heard of that, with that key tip that he gave. So he gives a key tip to have like your followers go to your Amazon page for the book and hit their social shares, which used to show up underneath like where you would buy the book or put a book on your wish list. It was in that section there is where it used to be. So then he said, have your followers go there and share it because that helps bring a more relevancy to the book on Amazon. But the social shares are not there anymore.
Oh, that's recent because I remember doing that. Someone did it randomly. Was it last year? Yeah, I think I also think Amazon has to figure out what things take up too much space and energy. And it's like, do you need the social shares? Also, do we need these people to reply back? Like, I don't know what that review box would look like, but could people do like a huge chain of arguments? Like, that's a lot of space on Amazon's side. So I could like not just the drama that causes, but like if you have a thread of 30 replies, that's a lot. So I would see many arguments as to just why they took it off. Like, we're not dealing with this.
Yeah.
And including with the social share, like how many people use it? I know one person. So
yeah. All right. Well, so what was your guys' key takeaway about the importance of keywords and increasing a book's visibility on Amazon?
I think it's critical, and I also think it's the lowest hanging fruit. So if you don't have a budget and you don't want to spend anything on ads, or like too much money promoting it, basically keywords are one of the lowest hanging fruits that you should definitely go for. And I think one of the other key takeaways is that we already spoke about it with the A9, the algorithm changing, but the other key one is that people change as well, right? So people look up different keywords, so it's not always going to be the same keyword for the rest of your life, like Gen X, Gen Y, whatever gen we're in. I lose track, but basically
Gen Alpha, I think.
Yeah, it's like every generation has like different lingo, right? I don't know if hip is still hip, and I don't know if it's lit or it's on fleek and stuff like that, but basically whatever niche or genre you're in, the wording, the keywords that people, the customers and readers will look for, they will change over time. So it's important to actually stay on top of that. So that was one of the things that I really appreciated in this book.
And a point to that, like that is happening right now in my genre, because we were fantasy romance. A lot of us were fantasy romance, but there's also romantic fantasy, which is slightly different from fantasy romance. But with romantic fantasy, a lot of the readers were just smushing it together, romantic fantasy making romantasy, which is short for romantic fantasy, which is not the same as fantasy romance. But even though we know the distinctions, the readers are now looking for romantasy for all of it and all of the books that fall under that spectrum. So that's something as an author, like, well, yeah, I know my book is more fantasy romance. It's not romantic fantasy or romantasy, but if you want to reach the readers, you have to use what they're using.
That's right. You got to speak the reader's lingo. So whatever the reader's lingo is, that's what. So you famous thing in marketing is you can buy in any language, but you have to sell in the language of the buyer, and that is literally what we're talking about here. And keywords is the lingo basically.
Yeah, what Brian Cohen and his team have found that there's 4 connector words that you use in the 7KDP keywords that you then find through Publisher Rocket. And it's the first one is about, second one is with, third one is where, and the fourth one is that. So that's at this point, that's what a lot of readers are just like typing into the search bar. So like, for example, my historical fantasy, I have women's historical fiction about witches, historical fiction about Puritans. Then you could do like romantic fantasy with fairies, something like that. Yep. And so that's been the recommendation. And then also 1 to 2 broad 7KDP words like women's historical fiction or 18th century historical fiction to get impressions if you're running Amazon ads. But there's 7, do 1 to 2 that are broad, and then the rest are very specific with it, connecting words, because that's how people are searching now because of TikTok.
And Dale doesn't talk about those connecting words in the book, but he talks about that same thing about having those couple of 7 those 7 slots on the back end for your metadata, a couple of them being broad, and then niching down from there. So that kind of connects the same there. So what was your key takeaway from the book? Is it that those pieces of information you have, they align?
Yeah, it's pretty similar to Ad School and even Dave Chesson. Yeah, there's just slight stuff that are different, like how to build. He doesn't really go into how to build ads, but there's some touching on it. And Dale aligns more with Dave Chesson, but that Brian Cohen's friends with Dave, and we use Publisher Rocket all the time. So like you can do stuff different. That doesn't mean you're going to fail or anything like that. It just, you should test and see what works. And if something doesn't work for you, there's so many people doing other things.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Like Nicole just gave everyone a massive golden nugget. And basically, you have to test, and what works for someone may not work for you. And that doesn't mean necessarily, especially if new authors, I've been there, we've all been there, it's like, oh, we put our book out and then there's a fanfare at the launch week or launch month, and then after all that, it just falls flat. It goes nowhere, right? I've been there, like most of us have been there. And instead of, looking at it as, oh my God, this is a giant failure, I spent so much money, and it's, oh my God, I'm going to go get depressed and cry. You can do that for like a day or two, and then pick yourself up and say, look, what worked for others has not obviously worked for me. So I'm going to change tact. I'm going to try something different. Dave Chesson has his methods. Dale has his methods. Brian Cohen has his methods. And in fact, I would encourage everyone to go and check everything out.
And David Goggins.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, David Goggins, starting from zero, free course, absolutely have to do that. Like, it costs nothing. Yeah, okay, it takes time. But the point is that, in this space, it's important to understand that there is more than one method out there. And if it doesn't work for you the first time, don't give up, keep going, and try something different. Like, if this keyword method didn't work, no problem. Try something different in like 3 to 6 months. Oh, that's a key point as well from Dale's book. He does not suggest you change it too often, which I agree with. Keywords wise, don't change your keywords. I've seen people change it every day. I'm like, the algorithm has not had time to sink in as to who your reader might be, right? And until you have that kind of data, if you get 0 sales, you got 0 data, then it's not working, right? But if you get 1 or 2 sales, then something might be working, and then it's like an experiment. It's a science experiment, back in high school or whatever. You just have to tweak something one at a time, and if it doesn't work, tweak something different and go from there. There's so many things that we can try. Definitely don't give up, and try different things, learn different things, and see what works for you.
And we've mentioned Publisher Rocket a couple times already, which this is something that Dale brings up in the book, but brings it up at the very end. It's just a smaller section of the book, and he gives his reasoning for this. It used to be a larger section of his book. He's revamped this book a couple times, and it's because Publisher Rocket is a paid program. Right now it is $97, one flat fee, but even on the website, Publisher Rocket is done by Dave Chesson and his team. So on the website, they say on there, they do plan to move to a subscription model for the program. So if you can afford the $97, I say go get it. But if you do not have those resources, most of the book is dedicated to how you can do everything for free to find the keywords, which Dave Chesson also has articles on his website that covers a lot of these things. And even Brian Cohen also gives great tips on how to find keywords for free. So, you don't have to pay for anything. But I would say that Publisher Rocket, which used to be called KDP Rocket, if you've heard that term, it's the same thing, is very, very useful and helpful in finding keywords.
Yeah, absolutely. I use Publisher Rocket as well. Yeah, can't get away from it. But like I say, if you don't have the resources, just use the free stuff. There's so much free stuff that you should be using. Even with Publisher Rocket, I still use the free stuff because, I find more keywords with the free stuff before then going into Publisher Rocket to get the data, right? That's how I do my thing. But without the free stuff, I wouldn't have found those keywords, if you know what I mean. So it comes back to like the argument that one method may not work. Like, try a different method, try a combination of methods, and that's what I've settled on. I use a combination of methods to find different keywords, and some may or may not be free or paid, like tools. In fact, most of my stuff tends to be free tools, and then I drill through Rock to see if there's anything juicy. And more often than not, you will find something. And if you don't find anything, I would say you're either too niche down or too general. There's something for everyone, you know what I mean?
And so I would also add that my key takeaway, because I don't think I've said my key takeaway, it kind of goes along with what we've been saying already about how everything changes, the algorithm changes. And what that means is that you have to be able to change your methods as well as everything changes around you so that you can keep up with it. And that's my key takeaway that I had from the book was knowing all of this is great, but it's not absorb this information, do it and be done. Things change, which means you have to continue to change as well. All right. So based on the strategies that were discussed in the book, are there any immediate changes you guys plan to make to your current or upcoming book listings? If yes, what are they? Or what is it that you read in the book that may be something you're already doing that you're just going to continue to make sure you're doing?
I'm probably going to do the same thing that I've mostly been doing, but I'm going to see, as I say, the free stuff first and then drill down from there using Publisher Rocket. And I'm probably going to focus a bit more. I feel I've been a little lazy with my descriptions, the book blurb, and that's an area where, although it may not get indexed directly on Amazon, I'm sure Amazon takes that into account. And even if it doesn't, it gets picked up on Google. So, which is like the biggest search engine on earth. So I definitely need to increase my utilization of the book blurb description section. But for most of the keyword research, I tend to agree with most of what Dale has said. And I will probably leave the Amazon ads. This is just my opinion. I'll probably leave the Amazon ads until all the free stuff has been utilized and the 7 backend keywords has been done. And then if I've got a budget or you've got the budget, then you can start looking at ads because you may or may not get that money back. It's got to be, money that you're able to burn basically, because you may not get a return on that.
Yeah, you definitely want to optimize as much as possible before doing Amazon ads. And then there's different ways to do Amazon ads. The ad school is to start slow and steady and bid lower, but then make many keyword ads. Like right now I'm at $5.25 for the month, but I'm at like 40-ish or 50 $50 in royalties. So I just made a profit of $45. But I'm also a unicorn where I don't get track sales. So, but I know if I turn off or I mess with the Amazon ads, I will tank. So I just leave them. Then I have to look at the KDP reports page and the ads dashboard. It's the split screen method because it's hard to make it make sense if you're just doing the ads dashboard. It's not meant for authors, but I am not really going to do anything new because I'm probably the level of moderate, not expert, but like I'm already pretty knowledgeable just because I've been in ad school for a long time, but they do similar things. And to add to what Andy said about blurbs, they do take, the Amazon algorithm does take blurbs into metadata consideration. And the big example that ad school uses is there's nonfiction author, scientist. He had alpha, because it's like alpha rays. I don't know, I'm not a scientist, but there was alpha in his blurb and he kept getting his ads rejected for sexual content, but he's nonfiction scientist. And so they had to take out alpha and then he could run the ads. And there was also another one, nonfiction. Was it nonfiction or fiction? Doesn't particularly matter. It's like he was in the blurb talking about a bear standing up over, you know, the main character or something like that. But he didn't say stand up. He said erect bear hovering over, and they just said no. So the metadata is in your blurbs, and sometimes they will take information from your blurb if maybe the KDP keywords is not enough, and they will put you in categories that don't work, but it's because of your blurb and your 7 KDP words and the categories that you chose. But ultimately, Amazon will look at all the things of metadata, including your title and subtitle, and they'll go, well, actually, you should be in this category. And then you have to fight and, well, figure out and then fight to take that out of the category. So that's why optimization is really important. Lots of research, lots of time, energy, possibly money, but you don't want to deal with those 2 examples because they could not figure it out until someone was like, maybe it's alpha and maybe it's erect. But it took a long time to figure that out.
Yeah, Dale does mention in the book that he strongly believes that Amazon uses the blurbs, which is the book description, as part of how the Amazon algorithm works. He said, I think he mentioned that he didn't have like any hard facts or anything like that, but he felt strongly that that definitely did happen. So, you know, my last blurb was done by Brian Cohen's team. So I'm glad that they know that stuff. I didn't have to worry about anything being erect in my blurb.
Yeah, I think it's really important because like Brian Cohen's team, they've got the volume of people to test things out, right? Which is one of the perks of being in a group like that. But yeah, definitely although if you type in a specific word in Amazon, like I tried this a few days ago, it may not index the description, the keywords in description, but they definitely take it into account, which means we need to take into account for the blurb anyway.
All right, so I am not as proficient as either of you two. And if you guys didn't know, I mentioned that Andy has done a presentation at the authortube writing conference the last couple of years. And I do remember the first year was about keywords and finding keywords. And I learned a lot from that. And I believe, what was your presentation last year, Andy? I thought it had something to do with keywords again, but I don't remember.
Keywords, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then of course, NICOLE's been in author Amazon ad school. I'm probably saying it wrong again.
It's ad school with Brian Cohen, or they've changed it a few times because
maybe that's why.
Amazon asked them nicely to take out Amazon.
So you've been in school for a while. All I do is what I've learned from listening to people like you guys and taking some of the free courses as well, like with Brian Cohen and Dale and stuff. But so the one thing that I took away from this, I was able to learn something. I mean, I feel like I've known this information, but sometimes you have to like hear things a few times, like, oh, I really should do something about this. So the one thing that I learned was that, you can, find your keywords, use the free methods or use Publisher Rocket or whatever methods you want to get your keywords with. But after that, you have curated your list. You take those relevant keywords and you finish a search on them by putting them back into like Amazon and seeing what books are pulled up. And it's not exactly like the particular books to start with. The first step is looking at, how many products are under that keyword. And then he gives numbers. So he says, I generally like to see a number of products below 1,000. If you get up to 10,000 products, you're not an established author, you're going to find it hard to place in the first page search results. And, I don't think a lot of fiction authors think about, like, I don't think we feel that, especially for newer or not, just still new in publishing, that we're going to end up on the first page of the search results. Because, I mean, just in romantasy, there's thousands and thousands of books. So you have to have really good search terms to try to find this. But I do like that, he mentioned putting those in there and looking at those numbers. And he goes on from there. It's not just like how many products are there, but what is, after that, then you start, researching more stuff about them, about the product details, about the different books that are there on the page. And I don't think I've ever went that far. I think finding the time to do keyword research, it takes time to do that. Even if you are using a tool like Publisher Rocket, like you, Andy, I've used it in conjunction with some of the free stuff as well. And that takes a lot of time. And then I don't go much further than that. So thinking about how I put those search terms back into Amazon to see what comes up, what are the numbers, what's selling, what are the number of products, what do the blurbs have in common? He goes into a lot of details with these things. And I thought, this might be important because I do not have the sales like what you're saying, Nicole. Like, I think I spent like $30 on ads last month because I'm still trying to figure it out. And I only sold like $15 worth of product. So I'm still trying to figure it all out when it comes to, that some of the books. So
yeah, it can be hard to just get it right. So like, for example, Ad School suggests looking through Publisher Rocket at your 7 KDP words quarterly. That's why they suggest 1 to 2 broad 7 KDP words, and then the rest are specific, because if you type in historical Irish fantasy, which is broad, but it's very niche, Daniel's Curious will pick up at least like the first page, if not the second or third page. But you have to type into the search bar on Amazon Irish historical fantasy. It's not gonna rank in like historical fantasy, right? But if the reader or a reader wants Irish historical fantasy because they're just in the mood, then that is where it will pop up on the first, second, third page. And then I think that it can be hard to think like a reader, especially now with TikTok, because they're doing it way differently. So you could, you could like me spend like hours trying to figure out what people are putting in. But for Publisher Rocket, they have a little section, I don't know how to describe it, but it's on the right-hand side where you type in like Irish historical fantasy, and you see the information pop up, and then it's a specific button that you click, and then you can see what other books are using that keyword. And then you look at it, you scroll however long the scroll is and see, is this relevant? So you could find a good keyword, but are other books using it appropriately? That's also something as well. So like I look up Danu's Curse and they're all Irish historical fantasy or Irish fantasy, it works. But if it was like mainly nonfiction about mythology, well, it's not gonna work. Like, it's a good keyword, but it's not being used in a good sense of like the actual keyword, but sometimes that happens. So that's another level that you have to look into. Unfortunately, depends on how much you want to do with 7 KDP keywords. Another thing is there's different ways to look at the information, but usually when it's like 1,000 plus competitors, there's like a lot, like 10,000 or more. So you do want to have 1 to 2 broad, but then you want to get it under 1,000, because yes, you're running into a problem of being too broad and too many really big spaces, and you're going to be at like 2,000 ranking. Or right now, like the urban fantasy is humorous fantasy, and right now I'm at 1,600, but I haven't gotten reads yet. But it can go to 400 if like 2-3-ish people decide to buy or read in KU. And the ad school does say bank over rank. It's going to be extremely hard for most writers to get on that first, second, third, even 10th page in categories. Like they have LJ Andrews in ad school. She's on the first page. She's doing a grand job. But the majority of people in ad school are making money, but they're not as big as her. So you have to also think about bank over rank. What is the rank really doing? You can tell if you're getting reads or borrows or anything like that, but the categories are a little fishy sometimes, and they match up with 7 KDP keywords, and that's where you can get placed in the wrong category and confuse people. And it also, I'm not sure how, I don't think they know how, but like I'll pop up in historical fantasy, but then if you type in Irish historical fantasy, I pop up too, but they don't have Irish historical fantasy. So So they're pulling words and trying to mix it together for the reader that's searching.
Yeah, that's the hard thing about having Irish fantasy, because there's no category
Yeah.
for it. So, because I'm there, my first series is an Irish fantasy, and kind of hard to market something that doesn't have a category. So, was there anything in this book that surprised you guys?
I think maybe Dale may have changed his approach by now, but I want to try and find it, but I can't seem to find it. I think there was mention of 1,000 keywords for AMS ads. I don't know if that's. I'm pretty sure I saw 1,000, but I can't seem to
Yeah.
find it right now in the ebook. But yeah, basically, I think that might be a little on the high side for most people. I think it's probably much more manageable the way Brian Cohen's ad school does it, which is like I think about 100 thereabouts. If I'm not right, but Nicole will probably know best. But yeah, basically, I think maybe 1,000 will be difficult to keep track of, especially if you're running multiple ads. Keyword ads, right? I'm talking keyword ads on Amazon. I think that I believe Dale's probably changed his approach on this as well. So that was one thing that surprised me at the time. But yeah, that was the only thing really.
But if you have those 1,000 keywords, you could do it like what Ryan says, that you have those 1,000 keywords, but you put 100 to 150 into each ad. So you make several different ads.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and then it's like 34 cents for standalone novels. It's basically, he changed it because everything changes. 39 cents for a first in series, and then 34 cents for everything else. And if you're doing international, it's 15 cents, or 15 in the currency of that international ad. And then it's one auto ad per format, and Amazon counts ebook, paperback, hardcover as different formats, even though they're the same thing. So you could have, if you have a hardcover, you can have 3 auto ads. It's usually 2 because not that many people have hardcovers. And then up to, it's like recommended 5 categories, because how much can you really get with relevancy? It's usually 3, but then it's per format. And then it's 100 keywords per format, 100 to 150. So yeah, you could, what's the math on, like, if you created or you gathered 1,000 keywords, the math is not mathing in my head, but you could do a lot of the 100 to 150.
Well, that'd be 10, right? If you have 1,000 keywords, it's 10 ads, or 10 keyword ads.
At least.
And then you would double it to 20. So you already have 20 because you're doing it per format. So
yeah, exactly.
10 ebook, 10 paperback. If you have a hardcover, 10. Yeah, that's a lot. You already got 30. And it's capped at 100 because they changed stuff, and they want to drill down on successful keywords within the 100 ads.
So one thing I found interesting was when Dale talked about wish lists. Like, he mentioned, having people add your book to their wish list on Amazon, and then making their wish list visible so other people can see it. And this is nothing I've ever thought about. And it's not specific for like keywords or anything. It's all about trying to just bring more relevancy to the book on Amazon. I thought that was an interesting note that he put in there. It was a bit surprising. And I feel like it feels like a lot of work to try to get people to add it to their wish list and do that when you may not have enough time when you're already trying to find keywords, because that could take a lot of time. Do you guys use the DS Amazon Quick View? This is in a Chrome browser extension that's mentioned in the book. Have you guys tried that? And what does it do for you if you have?
Yep, I've used it many times. I still use it. I close my browser, but yeah, it's one of these. Basically, it's just an expander tool. So as you type, it's going to give you suggested keywords or suggested words or phrases that people have searched. It's just to make your life a bit easier. So if someone's looking for, I got to say, one of the things that I took from this book is also that it's much easier to do keyword research for nonfiction than it is for fiction. I think that's generally accepted. But yeah, DS Amazon Quick View, and there's a whole load of other free stuff as well that I can't remember what the extensions are, but Brian Cohen's ad school that covers them in even in the free stuff. It's really useful, like the also bots and stuff like that. I can't remember what the browsers are, but yeah, that's just one of the extensions that I use. Really useful. Yeah,
I haven't used it before, but I do have the also bots downloader and the data scraper. Those are the only 2 I use. But then I don't use it all that much because I'm getting close to 100 keywords for like Obsidian Murders, and then you stop the keyword ads building and then you drill down. So I'm kind of slowing my roll on that one. And then the other standalones, they did some weird stuff with the algorithm, like they were great conversions, like the conversion rate, how you in the ad school figure out if you're profitable and all that stuff. They were like between 1 and 4, and then January 2nd, they all tanked. So I don't know about that, but I completely stopped making ads for it, and I'm just trying to just figure it out with the standalones. I don't know what happened there.
So you said the standalones,
ever changing.
Those the standalones, you said ads stopped converting. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Okay.
It's been annoying because if I was making, I would spend $1, let's say, on a Patriots tale, but I would make 25, and so then the Two Foxes, $2 made 20. Danny's Curse, $25 spent $3. Amazing, right there. I mean, it's low, but then you add it up. That's a lot of royalties. Tanked.
Wow.
Nothing. I'm just like, what happened?
Maybe that's why mine is not, because mine's a standalone at the moment. My novel is a standalone, and I didn't publish it until the end of January. So, and I haven't really been able to. I get impressions and clicks. I've got more impressions and clicks than I ever did on my Irish series, but I was spending more than what I was making. Where I've had to drop down how much money I wanted it to spend, so that I can at least try to break even.
Yeah, they're all at 25 cents. And this within the and I might have to drop it for a Patriots tale because it was at 75 conversion rate. Something's wrong. Something is wrong. When last year it was 1 to 4 conversion rate. Now we're at 75. Oh, girl. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But at least we can't tell. That's kind of the frustration of what's going on lately.
Yeah, I can't tell, and Amazon's not being very upfront about what's happening, what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, then they also did you check off ad spending? Because they're showing it on Pinterest and Goodreads and Instagram, and that was kind of like a issue in the beginning for me, and I had to play around with it so much, and then I probably messed up a little bit. But then again, I was like, well, I don't want my book to be showing on Goodreads or Pinterest because it's not optimized for that. It's optimized for Amazon, right? That was a sneaky thing that I kind of did.
I don't. When did that happen? Because I think I took the Brian Cohen's last. Yeah, I took his course. I think it was in January sometime. I think is when I took his course last time. It was right before my book launched in January, and I don't remember that being part of the course.
No, they're still working on how to fix that. They
have so I need to go in there and check that out then.
Yeah. I know it's for ad school students. I don't know if he's mentioned to other people. Yeah, it's just ever changing, and this is where you have to give yourself some grace and compassion. It's like you can't change Amazon. You have to work with it. Or there are people that were like, I spent over $100 and I made $5. I have to turn off these ads right now.
Yeah.
So that's also something that you have to think about. You could do all the great things for David Gaughran. Actually, he doesn't really like Amazon ads, but for all the other people that do Amazon ads or focus on Amazon, like you could do those things, but something has changed where it's like, okay, what happened here? I don't know. Okay, so then we have to pivot, and for me it was dropping the bids way down, and the standalones with the portfolio caps are $3. That's what I'm willing to spend and not make anything, and they're about to probably go down to $2.50 because what but then also, at least, well, I'm pretty sure others will think this way of like, focus on the book or books that are making money, for sure. And that right now for me is the urban fantasy. So that portfolio cap is higher and the bids are higher. They're at 34 cents. But I also have to think about, well, they're shorter and there's only 2 out. So I'm not putting 39 cents because they're like barely 50,000 words and there's only 2 out. Now, when it gets to maybe like 4, 5, 6 books in, I'll bump it up to 39 because then you're thinking about read through. And then you usually the idea is use the keywords that you can on the other books. But if there's like specific tropes that you want to use Publisher Rocket to see which, string of phrase works. But yeah, at least a little bit with a series, it's a little easier with 7 KDP keywords, hypothetically.
Well, we've been talking for almost an hour now, so I think maybe we should get ready to wrap up, but we'll have one final question, which is, what is the best tip or trick you will take to improve your keyword strategy after reading Dale L. Roberts' book, Amazon Keywords?
I would say things change. So every so often you need to go and check your keywords. I would definitely not be changing it too often. So I would personally, I check mine every quarter, maybe 6 months, definitely maximum a year. You got to revisit that for sure, but don't do it too often, like a day or two, or even a week or two. You got to give the algorithm time to, digest what you are feeding it. So that's the biggest takeaway. Things will change. Human behavior changes. Readers will search for your books in a different manner, and you have to keep up with that over time.
Andy stole my question answer.
You could just agree
I
with
don't know
it.
how I confused that. Yeah. I don't know how I confused question and answer.
That's okay.
It's fine. Annie got it right.
There you go. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's important. There's lots of important parts, I think, in this book, quite a few things to take away. And something I wanted to bring up and I had forgotten is that we're talking about keywords here. And keyword, we think keyword is one word, a keyword, but he does make the note that keywords the misconception is that it's only a single word. But some of the best keywords are phrases that are a string of 3 or more words. So I wanted to bring that up. But then I also think this point that he makes, which is kind of more of a mindset than anything else, is that you aren't writing publishing books for a machine. You're writing and publishing books for people. So when you draw that parallel between real life and business based around a machine, you can bring a more human element that ties humans together. So, even though you're using these machines, you're using Amazon search, you're using Publisher Rocket, you're using all these different tools that are machine to find these keywords, it's always important to remember that we're not selling books to machines. We're selling books to humans, but through machines. And I think that's an important mindset to keep in place.
Oh, I love that. Well, it's also like, I think that sometimes artists are like, I don't want to look at my story as a product. And I totally get that. For a long time, I was like that. But then, I mean, most writers read, and wouldn't you're spending, let's say, $15.99, not including tax, on a paperback. Wouldn't you want it to be optimized and pretty and formatted correctly? I bet there's even just a little part where you're just like, I paid $15.99 and the product is not as great as it could be. So it's like you have to eventually look at the book as a product, but look at it as finding your super fans that would enjoy the story in their product. That's a little easier versus I'm just churning this stuff out as a machine. I'm a machine. That's hard to grasp. And a lot of people that think that way do, eventually burn out, or they get upset, or, something like that. And you don't have to think about it like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you to my guests, Andy and Nicole. I really appreciate the time you guys took to read the book with me and talk about it today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so links for Andy and Nicole are in the show notes for the podcast and in the description box on YouTube. And this episode wraps up season 4 of the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks podcast, but we'll be back for season 5 on July 1st with an interview with fantasy author Devin Gambrell Clark, who has been on the show before, but this time we're going to learn more about setting up an author platform as a new author and how she leveraged networking to create I'll Call Indie, a site dedicated to connecting indie authors to other indie authors who also offer services like beta reading, editing, and audio narration. And don't forget that before that episode on July 1st, the AuthorTube Writing Conference will happen June 28th through 30th. It is free. We'll put the link for that conference down below. So we would love to see you guys there. It's an awesome weekend filled with learning about all things writing and publishing. And that will wrap us up for the season. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thank you so much to our incredible listeners and viewers for joining us on our exploration of everything self-publishing. We hope you found our podcast to be a treasure trove of insights and inspiration. If you've enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform or thanks on our YouTube episodes. Don't forget, you can catch all of our past episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and other major podcast platforms. Keep writing, keep publishing, and we'll see you next time.